Hello everyone, welcome back to a new episode of the Deadly Desires podcast with me, your host, Brandon Brooker. So for today's episode, we're covering the case of Cari Farver, so we're just going to get straight into it. In the year 2000, Dave Krupa met his girlfriend Amy at work. He worked as a truck stop mechanic and they ended up having 2 children together. But the relationship ended up breaking down. Dave and Amy worked different shifts, so they wouldn't spend that much time together. If Dave was off, Amy was at work, and vice versa. After the breakup, Amy wanted to move to Omaha, Nebraska, and she wanted to take the children with her. And of course, Dave wanted to see his children and be a part of their lives, so he made the move to Omaha, Nebraska in 2012. Being newly single and in a new town, 35-year-old Dave Krupa decided to join some dating sites, looking for some fun, no strings attached, and one of these sites he joined was Plenty of Fish. A few days into joining the site, 35-year-old Dave Krupa received a message from 34-year-old Liz Golia. In her profile, she stated that she had her own cleaning business and that she was divorced with 2 children of her own. Both Dave and Liz shared many common interests, including sci-fi, heavy metal music, action movies, and motorbikes. So it appears that it was a good match, and from the beginning, Dave made his intentions very clear to Liz. He was looking for something casual and just someone to have fun with on a regular basis. One day, 37-year-old Cari Farver came into the shop that Dave worked at, where they had a brief flirty interaction, but neither made any effort to pursue anything with one another. However, a few weeks later, Dave came across her Plenty of Fish profile and decided to drop her a message. They ended up meeting and having a great time. At one point, Dave had said that Cari was out of his league, and he was super surprised when Cari agreed to come over to his apartment that night. However, shortly after they had arrived back at the apartment, they were interrupted by Liz Goya ringing the doorbell as she had left something at Dave's apartment which she needed to come up and get. Cari decided to leave Dave's apartment and briefly pass Liz Goya in the hallway. This was a short interaction, with them only making eye contact for a brief moment as they walked past one another, but this moment would be detrimental in today's story. Later that night, Liz had left Dave's apartment. Cari had called Dave and invited him to come over to her place for the night, yet explaining she only wanted something casual, which fit Dave perfectly. Over the next 2 weeks, Dave and Cari spent a lot of time together, seemingly with no strings attached. However, one day, Dave received a text message from Cari asking him if she could move in with him. Dave sent her a message back trying to let her down gently and in a very polite way, explaining how he wasn't looking for anything that serious. After that, Dave's phone began blowing up with message after message of abuse from Cari, telling him how he'd ruined her life and how he was a bastard and that she hated him. A few days go by with no messages, but then he receives more messages which began becoming extremely threatening as the time went by. At this time, Cari Farver's mother began to worry when she hadn't heard from her daughter in a while. Cari was quite an independent person, however her mother found it worrying that she hadn't heard from her in a while. So she filed a missing persons report with the police. Naturally, Dave Krupa was questioned by police, and that's when he showed them the threatening text messages Cari had been sending to him. Following this, Cari had messaged her mother saying, quote, "I am not missing, I just don't want to come home right now." At first the messages seemed nice, but later devolved to be more harsh and intense. One day, Liz Goya showed up to Dave's apartment in a panic, showing him that Cari had keyed her car and sent her text saying, quote, "I will do more if you don't leave Dave alone," and ended it by calling her a whore. The messages made it very obvious to Dave that Cari was watching him, and each time the messages were coming from a different email or phone number, even reaching over 100 a day, so he wasn't able to block them quick enough. At this point, Dave reported Cari's stalking to the police, however they were unable to find her. One day, Dave receives a text message from Cari and attaches a picture of inside Liz Goya's house, and claiming that Liz had left her garage door open. When Dave arrived at Liz's home, he found her car had been keyed and that the word whore was spray painted on the garage wall. As time went past, the relationship between Liz and Dave grew stronger, and Dave felt bad for Liz as he kind of felt that he had dragged her into the drama and put a target on her back. On another day, Dave was at work when he received a call from Liz telling him that he needed to come back from his apartment as she had found one of his windows had been smashed. When he entered his bedroom, the words "Go away, whore" were written in red lipstick all over the walls. All of Liz's clothes in his apartment were covered in holes where they had been stabbed with a knife. At this point, the stalking from Cari had been going on for over a year, and Dave was on the edge of a mental breakdown, and the police were nowhere nearer to finding her. Cari then messaged Dave a message saying, quote, "I set that nasty whore's house on fire." So he rushed over to Liz's house, where he found her crying outside as her house burned down. Liz was unharmed, however, unfortunately all of her pets were killed in the house fire. She had 2 dogs, a cat and a pet snake. At this point, Liz decided to move but kept her location private, and from Dave too, in fear that Cari would find her. And shortly after, Dave followed suit, moving home and changing his phone number. The search for Cari was now cold, so as a new team was brought in to take over the search. It was believed that Cari was going through severe mental health episodes as she had left her bipolar medication behind. She had told her mother that she was moving, however none of her belongings were with her as they had all been left at her apartment. Due to the stalking, Dave hadn't been socialising as much, but he had decided to put himself out there again, and he returned to the dating sites where he met a new woman. But when they planned their first date, this woman never showed, and later that night this woman texted him saying, quote, "This is Cari, fuck you." Somehow, Cari had made her way back into Dave's life, and she had now begun harassing his ex-girlfriend Amy, who was the mother of his children. She was making threats to Amy and the children, and Dave's father was so worried that he had bought his son a handgun. A digital forensic professional who was brought in on this case, and he looked over hundreds of thousands of emails and texts that Cari had sent Dave over the past 2 years. Normally, the sender would use a virtual private networking service, a VPN, to cover their tracks. However, a few times they had not. And this digital forensics professional was able to track the IP address from these emails back to none other than Liz Goya. Ever since Cari Farver had been missing, Liz had been impersonating her, making her out to be some crazed stalker, threatening Dave, his family, and herself. She had also keyed her own car, written on the walls of her and Dave's homes, and she even burnt down her own house, killing all of her pets. In an attempt to help the police track Cari, Liz had previously allowed the police to download all the contents of her phone. They found a picture of Cari's car on Liz's phone, which is awfully odd and suspicious. Luckily, the police were in possession of Cari Farver's vehicle, so they were able to test for fingerprints right away. And they managed to find one of Liz's, even though she told them she had never been in or had seen that vehicle. Police decided to put a tracking device on Liz's car, and it was found that she had been circling Amy, Dave's ex-partner's house, multiple times a day. And Dave had also noticed that his gun had gone missing. And in perfect timing, police received a 911 call from Liz Goyer saying she had been shot in the leg while she was in the park. She told police she knew the shooter was a woman and that she believed it was Amy. Police did not believe her story and thought that she had shot herself in order to frame Amy, but they did not let Liz know that and investigated as if Amy had done it, which I really love. I love when police mess with the suspect. Liz began writing emails to herself pretending to be Amy, and as Amy, she admitted to shooting Liz in the leg. To cause emotion in Liz, police asked Dave to move in with Amy and their children, and boy, did that work. Police got a call from Liz saying how unfair it was that Amy got to walk free after she had confessed to shooting Liz. Liz began writing emails to herself as Amy with details of the murder of Cari Farver. Through these emails, the police learned that Cari had been stabbed and the attack had taken place in her car. Initially, when they had searched the car, they only found one fingerprint, but this time they searched for blood. When they pulled the fabric covers off the seats, in the foam of the passenger side seat was a big red blood stain. Regardless of there being no signs of finding Cari's body, Liz Goyer was arrested and charged with the murder of Cari Farver. Investigators continued to carry out searches through the thousands of texts and emails Liz had sent, and asked Dave if he had any more information that could be useful towards her. He then found an old tablet that had a memory card inside of it, and on this memory card it found that there were thousands of selfies of Liz, so she had taken the card out of her phone and put it into Dave's tablet at some point. But what interested the police was a picture of a foot that they had found. This foot had a tattoo which matched a tattoo that Cari had. It was a Chinese symbol that symbolised mother. At trial, the defence argued that a murder hadn't even taken place. However, this photo of Cari's foot shows the veins to be dark and visible, which is something that happens after death, proving that Cari was indeed dead in this photo. After all evidence was presented in court, Shanna, Liz Goyer, was found guilty of the murder of Cari Farver and sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole. This woman is crazy. She burnt down her own house. And killed her own pets. That's just... I would really like to hear your opinions on this case down below. As I said, it's quite a crazy one, so let me know your thoughts down below. If you enjoyed this episode, definitely give it a like and a subscribe, and I will see you next week for a brand new episode. If you want to see a previous one, there'll be one on the end screen at the end of this video. Alright.